Okay, let's unpack something that really shapes our world. How easily can our perceptions be manipulated, especially when, someone or some group is painted as the enemy? It feels like a critical question right now. So today we're doing a deep dive into this whole concept of demonization. What exactly is it? How does it actually work? And what are the deep scars it leaves behind on societies, but also on us as individuals? We've got some really interesting material to guide us. There are historical accounts from Iran, some sharp psychological analyses looking at power dynamics, and even some quite moving personal testimonies. So our mission here is to sort of pull back the curtain on how this works, look at its history, its modern forms, and really give you some tools, some insights into its lasting effects. Think of it as a guide to understanding a really potent force shaping our world.
And demonization, it's not new. It's a tactic with incredibly deep roots historically and culturally. See it very clearly when you look at authoritarian power structures, and Iran is a significant case study here. It's a tool for control that's been honed over centuries.
Yeah. Right. And to really get that ancient connection, our sources take us way back. We're talking ancient Persia, the Sassanid era, before Islam, and specifically the story of the Mazdakites. What can Mazdak himself teach us?
Mazdak, yeah, he was quite a figure, lived around the late 5th, early 6th century, a social and religious reformer. He was pushing some pretty radical ideas for his time, like social equality, sharing resources.
Sharing resources. How so?
Well, his core belief was pretty straightforward. God created the earth for everyone to use equally. Inequality, poverty, all that he saw it as stemming from human greed, from selfishness. So he was essentially arguing for a fair distribution of wealth, which you can imagine.
Eats it well with the powerful.
Exactly. It directly threatened the elite, the landowners, the established hierarchy. And that's where the demonization engine really kicked in. His opponents took his teachings and twisted them deliberately. They started spreading this claim that he advocated for sharing women.
Sharing women? Seriously?
Yes. Painting him as this morally corrupt, dangerous influence. But it was, by all accounts, a complete fabrication. The reality seems to be that Mazdak was actually quite ascetic. He preached abstinence from many worldly pleasures, even told followers not to eat meat, and focused on spiritual liberation.
Wow, so the contrast couldn't be starker.
Precisely. It shows a calculated strategy.
Yeah.
They weren't just disagreeing with his ideas, they were trying to make him seem utterly perverse, monstrous even, so that getting rid of him, eliminating his movement, would seem not just acceptable, but necessary.
A deliberate campaign of lies, basically. So what does that ancient story tell us now? Is this just some dusty historical footnote, or is there a pattern here?
Oh, it's absolutely a pattern. It echoes throughout history. You see ruling powers, time and time again, labeling their opponents political, religious, whatever it is, anti-religion, heretics, enemies of the state.
It strips them of legitimacy, right?
Right. Exactly. If you can paint someone as an enemy of God or tradition, you bypass rational argument. You attack their very moral standing. We see similar methods, for instance, in the medieval Inquisition in Europe. The labeling, the public humiliation, the segregation. It's a depressingly timeless strategy for neutralizing threats to power.
It feels like once that label sticks, almost anything becomes permissible. Okay, let's shift gears from ancient Persia to more recent times. A really prominent example from modern Iran, the People's Mojahedin Organization, the PMOI or EMMI. How are they targeted?
Right. The PMOI faced, systematic demonization. And what's interesting is it happened across different regimes, different eras.
Under the Shah first.
Yes. During the Shah's time, his secret police, Savak, threw a whole dictionary of labels at them. Saboteurs, foreign agents, Islamic Marxists, that was quite a contradiction, terrorists, a fifth column, trying to paint them as both religiously alien and politically subversive.
And then after the 1979 revolution,
after the revolution, under Khomeini, it didn't just continue, it actually intensified. It reached, frankly, terrifying new levels. And what's really crucial to understand here is Khomeini's incredibly strategic use of one particular term, manafaq.
Manafaq, what does that mean exactly?
It translates as hypocrite. But in Islamic context, it's incredibly potent. A manafaq isn't just two-faced. In the Quran, they're often depicted as a hidden enemy within the community, sometimes seen as even worse than an open non-believer, an infidel.
So it's a deeply religious condemnation.
Deeply. Khomeini knew exactly what he was doing. He used that word consciously, repeatedly, to etch the image of the Mojahedin as fundamentally evil, as religious betrayers, into the collective subconscious. They weren't just political opponents anymore. They were enemies of God himself.
Enemies of God.
Yes. They were also labeled Maharib, those who wage war against God, which is a capital crime in Islamic law and Yaqi, meaning rebels against legitimate religious authority. Each term carried specific, devastating weight, justifying extreme measures. And this whole process created what some analyses call collective bipolarization, a very clear us versus them.
Us being?
Us being the true believers, the loyal followers of Khomeini's interpretation of Islam, the Velayat-e Faqih, and them. Them were the Manafaq, the hypocrites. But it didn't stop there. It extended to other groups who didn't fit the mold Sunnis, certain ethnic groups demanding rights. It simplified everything into this stark black and white picture.
That kind of sharp division, that us versus them, it must have had a huge psychological impact on ordinary people. How did that play out?
Oh, absolutely huge. Our sources point to several key effects. For supporters, it provided this powerful sense of identity security. You knew who you were, who the enemy was. It felt clear, safe almost.
It simplifies things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It offers a dangerously simple explanation for complex problems. Why is there unrest? Why are things difficult? It's them. It's the hypocrites. And crucially, it instilled fear, a pervasive fear of this internal enemy, which in turn
made repression easier.
Precisely. It psychologically prepares society. It even encouraged people to report on neighbors, colleagues, anyone suspected of dissent. It laid the groundwork for the brutal crackdowns that followed.
You know, hearing that, it reminds me of something from my own childhood in Iran. It sounds absurd now, but I remember hearing these whispers, these rumors that Sunnis had tails.
Tails.
Yeah, tails. As a kid, it was genuinely frightening. It created this deep, irrational suspicion towards Sunni classmates, even though part of me knew it couldn't be true. It just shows how these labels, even ridiculous ones, can really burrow into your mind. How does that pervasive stuff, that almost folklore-level demonization, really warp society?
That's a powerful example because it shows how it's not just high-level politics. It filters down, becomes part of the air you breathe. Your story captures that insidious quality perfectly. And I recall similar things from the historical context. During the Shah's time, for instance, these Omar Kushan celebrations, they involved publicly burning effigies of Omar, who is a highly revered figure for Sunnis, but controversial for some Shia. And you had derogatory chants, like ones aimed at Balak people, things like, Arabs eat locusts in the desert, Isfahan's dog drinks ice water. Horrible stuff.
It's about stripping dignity away.
Exactly. It's what some call moral elimination. You don't just disagree with a group. You strip them of their humanity, make them seem disgusting or contemptible. You make them other. And the long-term consequences are profound. You get widespread self-censorship. People become terrified of saying anything critical because the line between political dissent and religious treason being labeled a manafaq gets completely blurred. Silence becomes survival.
And for the families?
Immense intergenerational trauma. Families of political prisoners, those executed, the stigma, the fear, it carries down through generations. And then there's this other chilling effect, a kind of collective psychological coping mechanism.
How so?
A rationalization of trauma, where people, maybe years later, to make sense of the brutality they witnessed or experienced, might start to suppress memories or even unconsciously adopt parts of the official narrative. They might tell themselves, well, maybe they were dangerous or maybe they were hypocrites, just to cope. It's a deep, deep wound on the societal psyche.
So it's clear this isn't just name-calling. The sources we looked at paint demonization as this incredibly organized, systematic thing, almost like a machine with different parts. Can we break down those parts, those layers?
That's a great way to put it. It is systematic. It's a multi-layered psychological operation, not just random insults. We can identify several distinct, though interconnected, layers that work together. First, there's the foundation, the conceptual or symbolic layer. This is where the enemy is first created in language. It's about choosing negative words, powerful metaphors, resonant images. Think witch during the witch hunts, communist during the Red Scare, terrorist in our own era.
It frames them from the start.
Exactly. It primes the public. It plants the seed that this group is inherently dangerous, different, maybe not fully human. It lays the groundwork so that later actions seem more acceptable. Building on that, you get the emotional layer. This is about actively generating fear and hatred. How? Through rumors, scary stories, manipulated memories, maybe even fabricated atrocities.
Right, the hospital story you mentioned.
Precisely. The source mentioned a fabricated story about mujahideen supposedly killing patients in hospitals in Kermanshah. Horrific, designed to provoke outrage and disgust. And in that emotional climate, people often don't stop to question or check facts. Emotion overrides reason, which leads directly to the moral or value layer. This is about dehumanization, stripping the target group of any moral worth, portraying them as fundamentally evil or corrupt. Our sources mentioned examples like soldiers sometimes being shown films depicting their enemies as subhuman before going into battle.
To make killing easier.
Essentially, yes. If the enemy has no moral value, violence against them isn't just permissible, it can even be seen as virtuous, as cleansing. Then comes the layer where it gets really embedded, the institutional and media layer. This is where the demonizing narrative becomes part of the official structure. State-controlled media, security agencies, the education system, religious institutions, even state-funded arts and culture, they all consistently repeat and reinforce the narrative.
Like the books and films in Iran.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source mentions over 1,000 books and hundreds of films produced by the Iranian regime specifically to demonize the Mujahideen. Now, as one critic pointed out, sometimes such massive overkill can backfire, make people suspicious, but the intent is clear, structural entrenchment. And this naturally flows into the social or interactive layer. Demonization becomes normalized in everyday life. It pops up in jokes, casual conversations, workplace dynamics. It just becomes part of the background noise. This subtly prepares society to accept, or at least not actively resist, harsher measures when they come.
It makes the unthinkable seem normal.
It greases the wheels, so to speak. And finally, there's the memory and historical reproduction layer. This is about controlling the past to control the future, rewriting history books, creating official narratives, shaping how future generations understand events.
Like saying past regimes were golden eras.
Or, as the source noted, encountering young Iranians abroad who've only absorbed the official line and genuinely wonder why anyone wouldn't support the Mujahideen, because all they've heard is that they are terrorists or cultists fighting the good regime. It shows how effectively memory can be manufactured and transmitted.
Okay, so these layers build on each other, creating this pervasive atmosphere. If we step back again, what's the ultimate goal? What are the core strategic reasons why those in power invest so much energy into this elaborate process?
Right, it's not just done randomly. Our sources identify several key strategic objectives behind systematic demonization. We can group them, maybe? First, and perhaps most obviously, it's used to justify violence and control. If you paint your enemy, whether it's another nation, a political opposition group, an ethnic or religious minority, as cruel, inhuman, a fundamental threat, then violence against them seems necessary. War, imprisonment, torture, even elimination can be framed as self-defense or righteous action. Think Rwanda, Yugoslavia. The list is tragically long.
So it provides a moral cover.
A powerful one. Second, it's a tool for creating internal cohesion and mobilizing support. Nothing unites a group like a common enemy, right? A shared external threat, real or imagined, can bind a population together, increase loyalty to the leadership, and make people willing to sacrifice.
Like the Iran-Iraq War example.
Exactly. Khomeini used the Iraqi invasion brilliantly from his perspective to rally even those who opposed him internally against the foreign aggressor. It solidified his power. Similarly, manufacturing fear of a threat, say terrorists or subversives, can rally public support for leaders or specific, often restrictive policies. And third, it's a classic technique for diverting public opinion and maintaining power. If a government is facing domestic problems, economic hardship, corruption, lack of freedom, pointing fingers at an enemy, internal or external, is a great way to shift the focus.
Distraction.
Pure distraction. Avoid accountability by blaming someone else. Khomeini certainly used the war for this, and you see it everywhere today. It also helps promote a specific ideology. By labeling any opposition as, say, destructive, anti-progress, or foreign-influenced, you can marginalize dissent and reinforce your own worldview as the only legitimate one. Think of factory owners demonizing workers' movements during the Industrial Revolution as dangerous radicals.
It really does sound like a timeless and depressingly effective set of strategies. Is this pattern, these objectives, clearly visible in major conflicts happening right now?
Oh, absolutely. It's impossible not to see echoes of it. Take the situation in Gaza since October 7th, 2023. Now, our sources are clear in condemning the actions of Hamas, but they also point out that many observers, experts, political figures, even some Jewish commentators, view elements of the Israeli government's response and rhetoric as employing classic demonization tactics against Palestinians.
Leading to those very serious accusations.
Leading to accusations like genocide, yes, which highlights the extreme polarization and the power of language being used on all sides in that conflict. And, as some of our sources suggest, it's also important to look beyond the immediate security narrative. There are potential underlying factors like economic interest, control over land, water resources, maybe even the significant natural gas fields discovered off the Gaza coast. These things are often obscured by the fog of conflict and demonization.
Right. And the sources also raise questions about the intelligence aspect.
Yes, that's a point raised in some analyses we reviewed. The question is, Mossad is widely considered one of the world's most capable intelligence agencies. How likely is it they were completely unaware of the scale of Hamas's preparations? Some suggest, and this is analysis interpretation, that the October 7th attack, however horrific, might have served as a convenient diversion.
A diversion from what?
From the very significant internal political turmoil and massive protests against Netanyahu's government that were happening in Israel right before the attack. Demonizing an external enemy is a classic way to unify a fractured nation and sideline domestic dissent. Again, that's an interpretation offered in the material, highlighting the complex layers possibly at play.
Wow. Okay. That really brings it home how complex and, frankly, how current this all is. We've gone from ancient Persia to modern Iran to conflicts unfolding right now. It's been a truly deep dive into demonization, uncovering the layers, the history, the motives. It's quite sobering.
It really is. And I think it becomes crystal clear that demonization isn't just, harsh words. It's a sophisticated, calculated psychocultural operation. It's how power often works, controlling the story, justifying actions, shaping how entire societies think and feel, often for generations. It leaves behind these deep, lasting scars.
Yeah. Profound effects. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Consider how easily we as individuals, as societies, can sometimes accept those simple black and white stories about the other. When a group is painted as purely evil, what might be the hidden agendas? What's really going on beneath the surface? And maybe ask, what responsibility do you have to question those narratives, to dig a little deeper and seek out a more complete, more human picture?
That's the crucial question, isn't it?
Definitely something to chew on.